Good evening and welcome to the Grand Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, April 7th. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada. Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to our very own Grand Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We move into our agenda with the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. Would someone care to make a motion for that set of minutes? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move the minutes of the City Council meeting held March 24, 2014 be adopted.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Councillor Radbourne, do you have a comment on the minutes?
I do. Thank you very much. I believe in 9.4.2 motion, though when I made the motion, we included Councillor Tarrant's name in the motion, and it's not.
For the additional appointment. Yep.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was the appointment to the Special Olympics.
Correct.
Organizing committee. Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radbourne, for that catch. The other catch that I had, just to pass on to administration for when we do the printout, with the Mayor's Poetry Challenge, the intent is to have the text of the poem recorded in the minutes. Now, if administration doesn't have a printed copy of that, we can make sure to get it. So it's in the final one for posterity. With those two amendments, was there anything else before we vote on Councillor McLean's motion? Seeing nothing, then I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We move to the adoption of the agenda. I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda. I believe we had one additional item to add today. Councillor Clayton.
I'd move to accept the agenda as amended.
Sure, and so that amendment was the addition of 9.3.5 award for Bear Creek North expansion, correct? Okay, thank you. So the agenda with that one addition, any discussion on the agenda? 9.3.5, the Bear Creek North expansion tender award. Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. So this brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. It is an opportunity for anybody in the community to come forward on any community-related matter. We did have a couple of pieces of business that we knew in advance. And the first is sort of internal city business and a community mobility survey prize draw. So Ms. Gardner and any of the rest of your team that would like to join you, Ms. Marr, come and tell us a little bit about the survey, and I guess we have a draw to make.
Thank you, Mayor Given. We had the community mobility survey that was being conducted in March, and it ended on March 31st. We were fortunate enough to have about 840 people complete the survey. It was really actually exceeded our expectations, and we also had just over 400 people who left additional comments. So it was a really well utilized tool to talk to the community. So we do have the draw for the mini iPad. So we would So you're going to draw a number, and we have the number with the name corresponding here on the computer.
So I can tell Ms. Gardner that it's entry number 622. 622. Michelle, you have the...
Okay, so the winner for that is Peter Bell from the city.
Okay, well, that's great. So thanks very much for that, and thanks to everybody in the community who responded to the survey. I think that's got to be one of the best responses to any survey that I've seen in the city in my time, and actually 830 some responses, actually more than we have for the customer satisfaction survey. So great to see that level of participation. The other piece of business that we knew that we had today was Ms. Mika de Groot from the Canadian Paraplegic Association. Mika, did you want to come forward? Welcome.
I'm really not somebody who changes the furniture around all the time. Hello, and thank you for letting us be here. The Canadian Paraplegic Association, as you know, is an organization of people who have disabilities, and we like to work together with people who make decisions about making our world a little bit more accessible for people who require equipment like wheelchairs and walkers and scooters and strollers. So we're here today to invite the members of the chamber and the council to join us in the Chairleaders Enabling Access event. Some of you have had this brochure and some of you haven't, so I'd like to pass it around so that especially those new guys are interested in finding out what it's like to be downtown with the Downtown Association and the Chamber of Commerce and Chris Workington and a few other really fantastic people like Kevin O'Toole and Bill Given to join us and find out what is it like to try and access the stores, and what is it like to try and eat breakfast that's being served by the firemen and the fire department. And we've got some awesome volunteers. Hopefully some people who live in wheelchairs will come and join us and answer your questions. What is it like when you can't reach a toilet? And what other things might come up through the course of the day? It's really exciting this year. It is a wheelchair challenge. It's very different than the other years that we've had. So I really encourage you to invite people that you know who make decisions and join us for the day. I brought with me today one of my primary volunteers. There's a lot of them, but Mel is just exceptional. He does a lot of work in the region, and he is currently helping me get to our regional locations because I'm having trouble with falling asleep while I'm driving, which, as you know, is not safe, and Mel keeps me awake. So he's here, and he has some questions for you as well.
Just a few questions, you guys. On the, like down there at Cora's, there's handicap parking labeled on the ground. But once they're snow covered, they're not liable, they're not up to, they don't exist. Is there, who's responsible for putting up the vertical handicap posts? Is that up to the town, or is that up to the people that were doing business in there? I have approached a few and they don't seem to hear what I'm talking about.
Well, I certainly can appreciate what you're talking about, but I'll refer the answer to our direct manager of enforcement services, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. What we can say is the building codes aren't incredibly specific. They specify when a new construction is built, commercial buildings, the number of accessible stalls that need to be there. It doesn't really speak much to signage in the way of that. However, we have an ongoing program in the city. We call them private property appointments, and that's where enforcement services personnel visit many of these new commercial sites and work with the owners to get them into make those stalls enforceable from a bylaw perspective. And at that same time, signage is one of the key components to that. So if we haven't been over to the cores lately, and it sounds as though that shopping complex, it does have a lot of recent development, so we should probably make our way over there. And I'd say the vast majority, 99.9% of all businesses are in favor of jumping on board with us and getting the standards in place that need to be there.
Yeah, and also there at Cora's, they got handicap parking, but yet the door is not automatic, and handicap cannot get in unless there's somebody with them.
Yeah, and I recently did an event at that location as well, and I did notice that, and that may be something building code wise that there could be some consultation and perhaps some recommendations put forward too. But I'll bring that comment back to our building inspection folks.
And do you have a copy of the barrier-free building guide or the codes for the barrier-free? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just okay. Yeah. Sorry, but no. Yeah, the barrier-free building guide is part of the building code, and it has specific measurements in there for bathrooms. Just about anything you want, you can get a copy of it pretty quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know the barrier-free guide can be. Well, we had one at the office. I got one, but they are accessible on the internet, or you can phone down and get a full copy of it. And it has specific measurements for each individual opportunity you need there. So, but that's probably all I've got.
No, we just really, I thought, well, do I need to provide some background for the Canadian Paraplegic Association more than I've offered? And I invite people to contact this office, and I'd be glad to answer your questions. And the information is on our brochure as well as on the internet. So, thank you. Oh, perfect.
There are a couple of questions in the queue for either one or both of you, and we'll start with Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. And just a question to Mika and yourselves. This was brought up last council, so now it's been brought again. Why couldn't that come to community safety? And we just, if you got it on the ground, we can look at it and get signages up so you can see it. So there's, like, this year was our most snowfall we've ever had in recording, and you can't see the signage. And I think it'd be positive to actually bring it to community safety and actually maybe make a bylaw and make it throughout the city. I believe the city could do that, but to have it looked at, maybe make an appointment to come to community safety and put it on the agenda. And I think that would be, I'd love to see that come forward.
Thank you. That's a wonderful idea.
I'll even just remind Councillor McLean that at the end of our agenda, we deal with committee business or with delegation business. If there's a council member that wanted to put something on the agenda as a result of the presentation, we certainly can do that actually for you. Save you a little bit of time. Councillor Rice.
I note the agenda says Cheerleaders Day proclamation.
Okay, thank you for bringing that forward. We're a little late in getting a proclamation to the city last year. We didn't give it to you till the day of. One of the reasons why we're delaying this year is because some of the other cheerleader committees in the province actually proclaim Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, which is May. And since we're opening the cheerleaders events this year in the province on May the 2nd, I've been waiting to get some extra guidance from the provincial office, which is in Edmonton.
But it is your intent when you get that to bring it to the mayor's office and request he do that?
Yes, that is so. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, I don't see anybody else in the queue with questions. Thanks very much, Mika and Mel, for
Thank you.
today, and it's always a pleasure to have you here at council. Thank you.
Thank you. Where can I leave?
You can actually just pass them. You can pass them to David, and he can pass them around. David Ollinger there. Okay, so this is the delegation portion of our agenda. Anybody's welcome to come forward on any community-related matter that isn't the subject of a public hearing later on in the agenda. So is there anybody else that would like to come forward on any other community matter? We do have this opportunity every 2 weeks when we have our regular city council meeting, and anybody's also welcome to make an appointment with any of our regular standing committees as well. So seeing nobody else coming forward for the delegation portion, we'll move on to, we'll close the delegation portion of our agenda, move on to public hearings. And item 6.1 is a land use bylaw amendment, C1260-6, to add elevation drawings to a site-specific direct control district. Mr. Welton, I'm going to guess that might be for an introduction.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This amendment is C1260-6, which is to add drawings to the DC-10 direct control district. We're recommending that council give the bylaw second and third reading as amended to the elevation drawings that were in the original elevation or in the original bylaw were labeled incorrectly, and though they have been corrected in the amended bylaw that's presented today. The DC-10A district applies to lots 8 to 13, Block 1, Plan 4007 HW, which essentially is 4 lots, or actually 6 lots, on the south side of 109th Avenue between 99th Street and 100th Street in the VLA area. The city received an application to amend the land use bylaw to add elevation drawings to the existing DC-10 district. The DC-10 district allows for the development of 9 front-to-back semi-detached dwellings for a total of 18 units. When the district was adopted, it included elevation drawings, facade materials, and color samples, which form part of the bylaw. However, the elevation drawings only included one side elevation for building 1, which was to face 99th Street. It didn't include the interior side of elevations, which must have smaller windows to conform to the code. The text of the bylaw as it was written requires that all buildings be in accordance with the elevation drawings. Therefore, permitting cannot approve the development without including the interior elevations. The proposed elevations clarifies the appearance of the buildings in the DC-10 district by showing every side of all 9 buildings. The bylaw does not change building colors or materials. The color elevation drawings are being numbered to correspond to the building elevation drawings being added, but are also not being changed. The VLA Montrose Area Redevelopment Plan identifies the subject area for front-to-back semi-detached dwellings to conform to sections 4.1 and 4.2 of Appendix A of the Area Redevelopment Plan. In addition, the development has been designed to conform to sections 4.37 and 4.51, even though they do not form part of this ARP area. Those provisions are to ensure that the fronts of adjacent buildings are not identical or the mirror image of each other, which is section 4.37. This has been accomplished by including different roof and porch overhangs, door locations, specifying different siding colors, and alternating facade accent materials. These are provided for in the existing DC-10 district and are not being altered. The locations of the windows and the side elevations have been offset in accordance with 4.51 to enhance privacy between the units. And below is an example of how the side windows are being staggered between buildings 1 and 2. Similar staggering of the windows would occur between all of the buildings. The direct control district provides for the development of 9 front and back semi-detached dwellings. The elevation drawings that identify the required appearance of the buildings. The development regulations in the ARP are also included in the VLA Montrose overlay, which is a schedule to the land use bylaw. The DC-10 district only includes one side elevation showing the street side of building 1. The proposed amendment clarifies the appearance of all sides of all 9 buildings. The bylaw has been advertised in accordance with the requirements of the Municipal Government Act. In conclusion, the proposed application to add drawings to the DC-10 district clarifies the intended appearance of the building elevations, including the location and size of the window openings to conform to the Alberta Building Code. And the applicant here is here to answer any questions that you have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks very much, Mr. Welton, for that introduction. So I'd open the presentation submission portion in a second. Councillor Rice, did you have a question at this point for administration?
I do. It's more of a comment.
Okay, well, we'll have presentation submission if you'd like to make comments.
Well, the comment is kind of a question to Dan.
So it's a question that's kind of a comment and a comment that's kind of a question? Okay, well, tough to judge, so we'll let you ask it. Go ahead.
Okay. In the report, there are 2 sections marked recommendation. I would suggest the first one is background, and I would suggest in future reflect that rather than 2 recommendation sections.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Rice. I mean, you know, we're here for second and third reading. And so that's the, in terms of recommendations, that's the part that council will be acting on. Appreciate that catch. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a question. I know it's all passed and everything, but I'm wondering, with Sumpage, they're putting these houses very close together and they all look like company houses. And the drainage for Sumpage, is it going to go out and freeze in the front yards? Is it going to be hooked to storm sewer, or what was the soil conditions? I mean, this is about elevations, and you got drainage in the winter, and I'd like to know about that area. So do you have that information?
Actually, I note that the applicant is here, and we do have the presentation submission portion coming up.
Okay.
So maybe that'd be better planning. I'm not sure. Again, we've dealt with drainage before, and typically that's at the development permitting stage or somewhat lower, not typically at planning. So we'll ask, we'll open the presentation submission portion of the public hearing and ask if anybody that's in favor of the proposed change would like to come forward to speak to it. So if the applicant's here and would like to have a chance to answer Councillor McLean's question, now would be a good time to do it. No, it's business arising.
To answer your question about...
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. Norman LaFleur. I am the owner and builder of these units. You ask about drainage and water. Well, I mean, the soil in that area is clay, just like most of Grand Prairie. And as far as the sump discharge, they will be going in the back alley, because that is the south side of the building. At least that way it gets sun when it's time for melting, so it doesn't last until this time of year. And as far as soil testing, well, there's none required as far as I know for any part of the town.
Okay. Thanks very much. Was there anything else you'd like to say, Mr. LaFleur?
No, I think everything's been said. We've asked for the amendment just to make sure that we've met all the codes and the privacy, and that's pretty much exactly why we stepped forward and brought this to the council. So.
Okay, thanks very much. Any further questions for Mr. LaFleur? Okay, I don't see any others. Thanks very much. So this is still the presentation submission portion of the public hearing. If there's anyone else that would like to come forward to speak to the application, is there anyone else that would like to come forward to speak in favor of the application? I don't see anybody coming forward, so I'd ask if there's anybody who would like to come forward to speak in opposition to the application. I'll ask one more time if there's anybody that'd like to come forward to speak in opposition to the application. I don't see anybody coming forward, so one last time, is there anyone that would like to speak to the application? No? Okay. So we'll close the presentation submission portion of the public hearing, and we'll close the public hearing and move to business arising. Councillor Rice.
Move second reading of bylaw C1260-6, an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. So motion for second reading. Any discussion and debate on that motion? I don't see any council members ringing in, so I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries with one opposed. Councillor Rice, you want to do?
I move third reading of bylaw C1260-6, being an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Any discussion or debate on third reading? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries with one opposed as well. That concludes all of our public hearing business for tonight. We had no unfinished business, no reports items, so it'll take us straight into committee business, and we'll start with 9.1 from Pursuit of Excellence Committee, March 20th. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I thought I did have a report on PAZA, but maybe it's not this one. Okay. Pursuit of Excellence. I'd like to move council receive the minutes of Pursuit of Excellence Committee held March 20, 2014.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Does it look like everything is in order? And it sure must be. Since nobody's ringing in, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor McLean, anything you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes?
There's a couple. Thank you, Mayor Given. There was about $6,500 given out by the committee out of the $40,000. One went to the Grand Prairie Minor Soccer to host 2 coaching clinics, April 27th and May 9th, 10th for $1,000. The other one is for Grand Prairie Lacrosse Association to host a coaching clinic for another $1,000, April 6th and 7th. There's also one of the Perky McCulloch's International Scholarship awarded. There's usually 2 a year, and one's usually in the spring or the fall, to Mitchell Boyd for canoe polo, member of the under-21 men's team, and they'll be heading to the World Championships in France later this year. So that was for $2,500. And then there was 2 awards given out for Bob Neufeld Scholarship. There's 4 a year, 2 in the spring, 2 in the fall, how it usually works. And one was for Avery Nairn for alpine skiing, and Hannah Norman for freestyle skiing to continue training to improve their skills.
Thanks very much.
$1,000 each.
Thanks for highlighting those. We'll move on to 9.2, the Community Growth Committee from March 25th. Councillor O'Toole, is that your set of minutes?
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I move that Council receive the minutes of the Community Growth Committee meeting held March 25th, 2014.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? I don't see anybody ringing in, so I will call for the vote. That motion carries. Councillor O'Toole, you have some business arising, I think.
Yes, item 9.2.1, inspection services staffing requirements. I move the council increase the staff establishment of the city immediately following 4 additional positions to the inspection services department.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole.
And if I could, in speaking to this motion, the city has undertaken a service review of the inspection department. The consultant has recommended that staffing requirements be addressed immediately in order to meet the current service demands and service levels set under the city's quality management team plan. All new positions would be for the buildings code officer, a customer service assistant, and a conversion of 2 temporary office positions that will make into permanent data entry positions.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole, for that introduction. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Questions or comments? It was discussed at committee, of course, and so it looks like everybody had their questions answered there. I'll call for the vote. Seeing nothing. That motion is carried. Councillor O'Toole, anything else you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
There was a couple of items that I'd like to just highlight a little bit. We had a downtown plan area infrastructure assessment for future development downtown. We had a presentation by our planner here in town for some concerns that we need to look after. And also another item that came up on the agenda was integrating the riparian setbacks into planning policy. So those will be coming up in the future.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. I think that handles all the items of business from that committee, and we'll move to 9.3, community living. Councillor Radburn, that was your meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I have a number of motions today. So start with council. I move the council receive the minutes of the Community Living Committee meeting held March 25th, 2014.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move the council approve the modified 2014 operating budget for the Leisure Center and reduce the net subsidy total to $425,000 instead of $927,773. A little bit of context and background for council. And we asked administration to do this because we knew that we weren't probably going to need all the monies in the budget because the Leisure Center wasn't fully operational this year. So this $443,000 or $425,000, I'm sorry, pertains to the soccer pitch area of the Leisure Center. So this is, so that budget line will be changed. However, the total, the rest of the monies will be used as, and fit in the budget as administration deems appropriate. So this is, we're not losing the money, we're not cutting the total budget. We're saying, hey, this is what the leisure center is going to cost, and administration has the flexibility in terms of where to best reallocate those monies. Thank you.
Any discussion or debate? Councilor Rice.
Not coming back to council, staff is gonna decide 400,000 where it goes?
Councilor Radburn? Your microphone's off. Councilor Radburn?
Mr. Anderson, in terms of what administration is thinking.
Ken, would you like to speak to it?
Sure. Mayor Given, there's often a number of emerging issues that arise during the year, so this would be used for any of those one-time emerging issues.
Thanks very much. Ultimately, so Mr. Anderson, use of this funding, would it have to come to council for approval?
Well, that's correct. When there are emerging issues, council looks for administration to come up with funding sources, and this could be one of those funding sources that would come back to council.
So I think Councilor Rice, ultimately council would have the approval of use of these funds, just for giving it to administration as a flexible source of funding that for any priorities that come up, where we may find a shortfall or increased costs. Anything else, Councilor Radburn, on that? Nope. Any other discussion or debate? I'll call for the vote. Excuse me. I think I went a little bit too fast, Council. I think I didn't let somebody in to vote on that one. So I'm going to re-vote. Excuse me, Council. I'll call for the vote. Okay, there we go. Now we've got 9. Thank you. Sorry about that, Council. That motion carries. Councilor Radburn, you've got a few more.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Given. I'd move council approve Mr. James Donnelly and Ms. Christina Smith be appointed as inspectors under the Agricultural Pest Act of Alberta. And furthermore, council appoint the Community Living Committee to hear appeals resulting from the enforcement of the Agricultural Pest Act of Alberta. These are, as I understand it, annual appointments and the appeal mechanism that goes with it, and it's required under the Agricultural Pest Act.
Thanks very much, Councilor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on those motions? Motion, Councilor Rice.
Somewhere in the agenda, there was a motion to appoint 4 more weed inspectors. How does that, how do these people tie in with them?
Councilor Radburn, do you want to speak? You can just turn your mic on there.
O'Toole, I think, is referring to the 4 more. But there is, I think, coming to committee tomorrow, the weed inspectors are being appointed. So that will come. Weed inspectors are different than pest inspectors.
Yes, correct. Mr. Roth, do you want to speak to the distinction?
Certainly, Your Worship. There's actually appointed as inspectors under 2 different pieces of legislation. Weed inspectors deal with weeds. Pest inspectors deal with things like diseases in trees, as well as other agricultural related pests.
Thanks very much. Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or debate?
It's good that you read the community living agenda for tomorrow, though. That's good. That's good. We're ahead of the game.
Okay, seeing nothing else, I'll call for the vote. Motion carries. Councilor Radburn, you've got a few readings of some bylaws to do.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move council give first reading to bylaw C-1292, Outdoor Festivals and Special Events Bylaw.
Thanks, Councilor Radburn. We'll just have motion for first reading, and then on second reading, we have introduction. So no discussion or debate on first reading. I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councilor Radburn.
I would move council give second reading to bylaw C-1292, Outdoor Festivals and Special Events Bylaw. This is a redraft of a bylaw. It is streamline the process for licensing outdoor festivals and special events. It added certain components such as nonprofit organizations don't have to seek licenses. They're exempt from paying licenses. License fees are only to be paid for ticketed events. And the director has the authority to set out deposit requirements to offset costs of municipal services. Yeah, so it gives you a bit of the intent of the new bylaw.
So we have a motion for second reading, discussion and debate. Councilor Rice.
I'm surprised we're doing three, or it's proposed to do three readings of this bylaw. Generally, we do first reading, which tables it as a public document, which then allows a couple weeks for members of the public to come in and express concerns. I'm wondering why this process wasn't followed.
Councilor Radburn, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I certainly can as well. This was a committee, and so it has gone through the committee process. And our impression at the committee level, anyhow, was that administration had done significant work with industry in the drafting of this bylaw. So it's gone through our regular committee process to get here. This isn't the first time that it showed up publicly. And actually, even at the committee level, committee had some feedback. It came to us first a number of months ago. Committee had some feedback that we gave to administration. Administration took it back, revised it based on that, and then brought it forward. So I think this is a result of a pretty robust process with industry, as well as going through the committee process. So,
thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a question maybe to Director Gary. Wasn't this pretty outdated? Was it like 20, 25 years since, like how long has it been? A long time?
Mr. Roth, do you want to speak to the update of the bylaw?
Yes, Your Worship. The old bylaw this bylaw replaces was passed in the mid-'80s, so mid-1980s. So it is a very outdated process. Certainly, this streamlines the process and does make it more current.
Thanks very much, Mr. Roth. Don't see anybody else in the queue with discussion or debate on second reading. If there's not, then I will call for the vote. Thank you. And that motion carries. Councillor Radburn, and your microphone is off there.
Thank you. I would move council have third reading of bylaw C 1292 outdoor festivals and special events bylaw.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. So this is a motion to have third and final reading of this bylaw here tonight. As with any time we do a motion to have third reading, it must pass unanimously. Otherwise, the final reading of the bylaw would come back at our next council meeting. Any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third reading here tonight? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries, so we can have third reading. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Given. I would move council give third reading to bylaw C 1292 outdoor festivals and special events bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on third and final reading? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn, that's the other part of the bookend.
That's right. So the other part is, so I'll start by moving that council give first reading to bylaw C 1103E, an amendment to the noise, nuisance, and public disturbances bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn, for that motion for third reading. I'll call for the vote. Excuse me, for first reading. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you. I would move council give second reading to bylaw C 1103E, an amendment to the noise, nuisance, and public disturbances bylaw. And this is required, as I understand it, that the amendment is that it exempts special events under this new outdoor festival event bylaw, exempts them from particularly the time constraint included in that bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate, questions or comments on second reading? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council have third reading of bylaw C 1103E, an amendment to the noise, nuisance, and public disturbances bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on the merits of having third reading? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries, so we can have third reading here tonight. Councillor Radburn.
Finally, I would move that council give third reading to bylaw C 1103E, an amendment to the noise, nuisance, and public disturbances bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on third reading? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Thank you. Councillor Radburn, you have one more piece of business.
Thank you. I would move council award RFP 04-431-14 FASD supports and services to Accredited Living Services in the amount of $296,436 and to Awanauchi Winawak Nation of Canada in the amount of $148,218 as the highest qualified proponents to perform the services. This is provincial grant monies for the FASD fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Thank you for the spectrum disorder. These services, the money comes from the province. The city provides the lead admin services for the region. So this I guess award of the tender is for the FASD region. And I can say that we've moved from 5 or 6 contracts, or five agencies to only 2, and there are 6 contracts given to these 2 agencies. And they basically are to provide full-time support workers and full-time parent-child assistants for, I guess, to support peoples with FASD in the region.
Thank you very much. Councillor Radburn, any discussion or debate on the motion? Recommendation to award those 2 tenders? Excuse me, RFPs. I don't see anybody ringing in. I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn, anything else you want to highlight?
So, if it's okay, Mayor Given, I will just give the other highlights of that meeting before I go on to the additional agenda item. So, the other highlights were we did receive, had delegations from DTS, Kool-Aid Society, PACE, and Red Cross. They provided updates in terms of what's happening with the monies that they receive from the city for various programs and projects that they are implementing. The other delegation was from a representative of the Junior National Racquetball Championships. Was a surprise, great surprise to see that later this month we are hosting the National Junior Racquetball Championships here in our courts at Eastlink Center, and received that national competition. And they were asking for a little help, particularly with transportation. They are required in terms of their offering of this championship to make sure there is continuous transportation services from hotel to the competition site. And so what the motion from committee was that that we support, ask admin to work with them to provide GIK services, particularly in the transportation area, for up to $3,000 to help them with that, I guess, requirement in the bid process. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn, for covering all the items from that agenda. And you said that we have our additional item 9.3.4.
We do. The additional agenda item is from the Special Committee Leaving Committee that we just had before Council tonight. And so the recommendations or the motions coming out of that was that Council award tender T10-432-14 for the North Bear Creek Trails and Landscaping Construction Project to Wapiti Gravel Suppliers, a division of NPA Limited, in the amount of $1,198,150.50, excluding GST, as lowest qualified bidder meeting specifications, and to approve use of $800,000 of MSI funding to address the shortfall necessary to complete the project. So just to, yeah, I guess I can, should I speak or not?
Sure, and you know what, Corporate Services Director made a good point in terms of the order of the motions. We probably should
the first one first?
Well,
the second one first?
The second one first, yeah. So we'll actually, and we'll do them separately. So we'll have the motion for the funding. So Councillor was...
Okay, so the first motion would be to approve the use of $800,000 from MSI funding to address the shortfall necessary to complete the project.
Okay, sure.
So Lindsay's here if there are questions with respect to the project. This is about $750,000 was approved in last term's budget. due to inflation, and we think that there was not a contingency allowed for in that budget amount last time. This project, obviously, is the costs have gone significantly up. The recommendation is that in Lindsay, working with the finance department, is suggesting that this $800,000 of MSI funding is remaining in MSI funding for this budget year. This will, as Kenneth has informed me, I think this will, we won't have any other MSI funding left this year in 2014, but we can cover it with MSI funding from this year's budget. And of course, we get more MSI funding next year. But so that was the recommendation.
Thanks very much, Councillor Everin. So we are going to deal with this in two parts, right? Obviously, there's no point in awarding a tender if Council's not going to fund it. I think is what Mr. Anderson was suggesting. So we're dealing with just that first motion on the funding portion. So open for discussion, debate. Councillor Everin, do you have something?
Yeah, if I could. I think it is relevant that if there are questions about the project, we should entertain them now as well. Lindsay's here, Gary's here, but obviously that knowing the project and talking about the project is germane to this motion as well. So.
Sure, and this was from a special community living tonight. So Lindsay, I don't know if you'd be comfortable, but if you wouldn't mind joining us at the presenters table, so that if there are any project-related questions, you'd be able to speak to them. And council members, I see that there's a couple folks in the queue. I wonder if maybe we could ask Lindsay to give us a little bit of a sense of the scope of the project and what this tender would cover. Lindsay, would you be prepared to do that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Worship. The tender was spec'd out for the landscape construction project for the North Bear Creek Trail expansion. The scope of the project basically is going to deal with what I would call the civil works of the project. This entails the construction of a multi-use trail. So the base of the trail is designed to accommodate vehicles. Typical our trail spec is less of a gravel base. This is of 150, so 6-inch gravel base. We've beefed it up to a 12-inch gravel base. So there's basically going to allow for heavier vehicles to drive on the trail. So we need to provide access to our transportation department to get down to a storm outfall. And this will be one of the locations that they'll be accessing for that purpose. The trail, as mentioned, is about 900 meters in length. We'll also provide a 22-stall gravel parking lot. Construction of, there's some significant amount of gravel or concrete paving that is also going to be done at both the trailheads, as well as the associated soft landscaping, so some tree planting and some soft landscaping associated to the project. In essence, that is the scope of this tender. There are some features that changed from the original scope of the project, which was we were looking at having a boardwalk underneath the bridge. It was basically decided it was going to be cost indicative to not go with that. It was going to cost too much money, as well as a long-term maintenance cost associated to that. So we are going with a approximately 67-meter long concrete trail, which is 10 feet wide and about almost 200 feet long. That section will go underneath the bridge. As well, there's some railing that's going in. The work that's under the bridge is fairly significant to accommodate. It has to be regraded. It has to be all taken. The baskets and stuff that are under there have to be all taken out. So that's part of that work as well. The balance of the funds that we're looking for in the project will accommodate the interpretive area, which we've been working with Mayor Given on, but will accommodate getting those components installed this year with the project as well. So that is the request in the motion is to cover off the shortfall in the tender, but also to allow for the contingency in the project to allow for the interpretive play area to be constructed as well.
Thanks very much, Mr. Tinker. And Lindsay, if you just want to stay there, if there are questions of a technical nature about the project, maybe you can best suited to answer them. So discussion, debate on the motion. Councillor Rice, you're first in the queue.
I just want to some, I guess, some clarification. And I'm trying to be careful how I say this because I don't want to steal another organization's thunder. But how does this project, or does it interface with a potential legacy project for the 100th anniversary?
Sure, I certainly can speak to that on a couple of different fronts. First, the expansion of Bear Creek to the north was the project selected by the 100th Anniversary Committee as the Capital Legacy Project for the city's 100th anniversary. So it was always intended to be the sort of gift to the city for the 100th anniversary. Within that, Lindsay mentioned he'd been working with me on the park playground equipment and interpretive stuff, and that wasn't for my expertise in park design. I've been doing a little bit of work with some community organizations with regards to fundraising. Councillor Rice, if that's what you were referencing. And I guess that would be the question for administration. Do these numbers reflect any potential income that may come from donations to the project? Or would that reduce the amount of borrowing that was, or sorry, of MSI that was required?
There would be possibly some funding with setting the parameters for that project. If it comes in under the $273,000, that would be sort of the maximum budget that I would be setting. Any of the funds that we receive from the community organizations would go back into the budget, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, remember last council this came up in the open house in Center 2000, and we know there's a big mobility plan on go. And what I really liked about this is, well, first question is, from the parking lot on the west hand side, is it going to be lit up? I know some areas are going to further out and it'll be natural trails, but lit up to go to the bridge and come out to the Center 2000. What I'm looking at is security, a little darker in the evenings, and for children's sake. We're going to have some solar lights, and we're going to have some lights so people feel secure, because that's going to be a main travel area. That's the question I'm asking. Did you plan for 5-6 posts to go in there? I'm hoping solar, but I don't know, whatever, lights.
To date, sir, the project does not include any lighting. There is accommodations in the original project to have basically the ability to install some lighting under the bridge. There are some street lights in the location of the parking lot, and it is fairly open in that area at the top of the hill.
I just want to finish off. I think the city addressed by the mayor, children now not 6 but 4 and under, more than 65. This is a safe passage from Old Oaks, an area that's growing northwest, where you get children for mobility to go from underneath that main travel road and to get this a little bit more safer route to get to a direction they're going to go. So I really hope that if there is some savings, I know it's about 6,000-7,000 for one solar light post. So I know this for a fact. We should have a little bit of light on some of the trails, so it's a direct route for, they know that this is safe. So I'm all for it. I just want it well lit on the main direction.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any other discussion or debate? I just want to say to Council, I appreciate that on the fundraising portion, I was somewhat cryptic in that it is important. Council probably is curious. Working with some community organizations for donations that would be in that $150,000 range. They are not secured at this time, so I think that's why administration is recommending that the project needs to be funded to the total amount. But just so that you have a sense of where we're at. Is there any other discussion or debate? I will take an opportunity then to just into the debate for a second. I would encourage council to support this. I believe that this is obviously a significant project in terms of size, but I think it's significant in terms of value to the community, given it's the first expansion of the park in roughly 25 years, and it's the first one that starts to connect the park to our northern neighborhoods across the bypass. This will have it open in advance of the hospital opening, and I'd note in terms of dollars and cents that we have two items on our budget. The first, which we already went through with the leisure center, where we had savings of nearly $500,000. And then we have another one when we set the mill rate, where we have an opportunity to have savings of another $200-some thousand if it goes forward with the recommended version of the bylaw. So in terms of savings, cash in and cash out, I think we're very close to a draw there. And it's great that we had the flexibility with the reduced operational subsidy at the leisure center to be able to manage that. So I certainly would encourage council to recognize the full picture of all the things we've got going on just within this one council meeting tonight, and I'd encourage your support. Councillor Tarrant, discussion debate.
Thank you, Mark. If I just one question for Lindsay. When is the expected completion date?
The tender specifies a completion date of August 31st. That will be the Friday of the long weekend, September long weekend. So we would have the grand opening on that long weekend.
Thank you.
Lindsay, anything further?
Just the fact that the extra 273 that would be left over with this request is that part of that funding is for the contingency. So if there are some extra things that do pop up during the project, versus we wouldn't want to be putting the dollars that we receive from the donations back into that. It's not to cover that. It's to cover specifically the interpretive play area. That was the stipulation of the donations.
Okay. Thanks very much. Councillor Radburn?
Thank you, Evan. Just to, if I might close, would that be in order? I would just also...
Councillor Rice?
Okay, now Lindsay confused me on that last one. I was totally committed to this till he pretty much said you're not getting the money back.
I think what I heard Mr. Juniper say was the specific program that we've been working with for a donation on. Their donation was specifically to the interpretive elements of the playground features. There's other stuff that's going to happen, and included in that amount is some amount for contingency on the overall project.
Included in the 237. Okay, so basically saying we're not getting the money back. Or no? Okay.
Whatever he doesn't spend is going back. Thank you, Councillor Clayton. That's probably the most succinct way to say it. Whatever he doesn't spend, or is not required, whether it comes in the form of fundraising or unexpended funds because there was no requirement for the use of the contingency, would go back to MSI.
Okay, that's not the way I heard what he said. But okay.
Okay, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I just wish there was like a map we could put up to actually show. So, like, this is a big budget item, and I'm not saying I'm against, but because some of my concerns are lighting for traffic for youth and moving on, and because there is areas where the hill goes down and people are nervous. So, and it's going to be a main trail for safety. Not kids dart across that comp, then go to the stores and everything, and if they know they can have a route, they might take that safer route. So I'm very concerned about the lights, and I wish we could have a map up here to have a look at, just to show exactly. I know he's saying 100 meters, but they're from the last council they were talking about, so in the open house. I wish that would have been brought forward. Okay.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing no, Councillor Radburn, sorry, thank you, to close.
Yeah, actually 900 meters, Kevin, in terms of the trails, not 900 meters. Anyway, I think I just want to close and encourage council to support the motions, actually. I know it may restrict our flexibility with MSI for this year. I understand that. But I just think this project is so important to the community. Moscow CP Park is our jewel. Any survey that when you ask our residents about what makes Grand Prairie special, Moscow CP Park comes up. And we haven't expanded, enhanced for a long time. So I think this has just been a perfect fit for a Centennial project for the city this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn, for the opportunity as the mover to close discussion and debate. So we'll move on to the vote. This is that first motion on the additional funding that was required. I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. So Councillor Radburn, we move on to the second motion.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move Council Award Tender T10-432-14 for the North Bear Creek Trails and Landscaping Construction Project to Wapiti Gravel Suppliers, the division of NPA Limited, in the amount of $1,198,150.50, excluding GST as the lowest qualified bidder, meeting specifications.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Discussion debate. Councillor Rice.
Since I didn't get to say this last time, I just remind council that it's extremely important to get this passed and get the work began. It was a vote of the entire council that this be the legacy project of the 100th anniversary. So it's extremely apropos that this work be done this year.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. If this passes tonight, by the fall, Lindsay, this project will be completed.
I think I heard Mr. Juniper say that the tender RFP requires that the work to be completed by August 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I think that was the all for our additional item. Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Thanks, Mr. Juniper, for being a resource here tonight. We move to 9.4, the Community Safety Committee from April 1st. No joking, no April Fools. Councillor McLean, I think that was your committee.
Yes.
I just want to make sure your mic's live there, Councillor McLean.
One second, Mayor. Okay. I'll move that council receive the minutes of the Community Safety Committee meeting held April 1st, 2014.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Everything looks to be in order. If it does, then I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you. I move that council approve the 1990 Pierce Lance 50-foot telesquirt fire apparatus ladder 3 be made available free of charge to a small community or First Nations community in Alberta or Western Canada, and failing that, will be offered to local Rotary clubs for their Highway to Mexico project.
Against the motion, and I wish there was some way that we could split the motion. I can't quite figure out how that should be done. I remind you all that we have an agreement with the Rotary clubs, which we have had for several years, based on the work that they have done with Mazatlan and the equipment. We entered into a sister city agreement with Mazatlan. Several of our citizens have taken a very active role in that and a source of pride. As you can see, our city manager does not look well as a result of his recent involvement in that project. I just think that we have a moral obligation to continue that relationship, not all of a sudden change.
Councillor Rice. Councillor Rice, you were asking about splitting the motion. Any council member obviously can propose an amendment to a motion. So if you want to think on that. But Councillor Logan is next in the queue while you think.
Thank you. Interestingly enough, I sort of sought out feedback on this, and the feedback was running 4-1, although the numbers themselves were quite a bit bigger than that this was a good move to do, that there is responsibilities here at home in Canada that have to be met with as well. I am a Rotarian. I've always supported the twinning with Mazatlan as a councillor and as mayor, but at no point do I ever remember that 20 being conditional on the vehicles being driven down there. That was a Rotary initiative, not a City of Grand Prairie initiative.
Thanks, Councillor Logan. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I too sort of echo the sentiments of Councillor Logan. I'm all for helping out the world. I think we need to take care of peeps in our neighborhood too, and if it can be used in and around our region to help out the locals, then by all means I would be in support of that. If there is opposition to where this equipment will go, I might suggest that we do have 100 years of transportation that's coming up, and potentially we could hold it over or delay it just to showcase it and allow the debate to pursue and continue on if there is an amendment to this in a split vote. But I probably will be voting in favor of seeing what we can do here locally as well.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any other discussion or debate? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll just speak to the motion from the committee as well. We didn't have no letters from Rotary. We do now. And what I'm worried about, it's nice to have a community. It's a 20-some-year-old vehicle, and what would the price to bring it to standards where we have now to maintain from here, because Mexico's a different country. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards not supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Radburn.
So I'm not sure about the mover being able to speak against in opposition to the motion. I don't think that's so somebody else should have made that motion. I have, I guess, some information to share that might be helpful for everybody. This was a challenge in terms of working through personally in terms of this project as well. I guess and so I did take the opportunity to call Fire Chief Lemieux on Friday just to seek some background information. And maybe I'll just quickly share, McGiven, if that's okay with you. I think about 4 or 5 years ago was the last time we donated, the city, donated a piece of equipment to the Rotarians project. And it went kind of a similar process where there was a motion of council and that was supported. Then it was advertised in the media the next day. And the day after, Chief Lemieux got a call from the Fire Commission office, the Office of the Fire Commissioner of Alberta, saying, you know, our office can look for a fit. We know where there are other needs, more regionally, more locally, and more regionally. And so please, in future, give us the opportunity. And so I think administration, in fairness to administration, this time had that in their mind. Send it, and they sent it to us in this way that gives council the choice in essence. So, but I think that for me, I do favor providing a hand up to more local and regional municipalities. But I think it's important, and I think we can, I don't know if we need it in the motion, but I do think that we can ask the Office of the Fire Commissioner to look for a fit. Because I agree with Kevin in terms of that I think we need a fit where there is a will, an interest to use the equipment, and the wherewithal to make sure that it can be maintained so it remains useful for a long time. And but I'm comfortable in the process that's outlined in terms of seeking the support of the Office of the Fire Commissioner in Alberta to do that, because I agree that we need that to make sure our investment is going to get the best, best use possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I'm going to speak against this. In my previous life before council, I was involved in the maintenance of equipment and things like that, inspections. And if we were to give this piece of equipment to a small community, the ladder system would have to be inspected, and that fee could be anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000. The pumps have to meet a requirement of water flow, and those parts could be quite expensive as well. And if this was decided to go to Mexico, if that's the way council would like to see it happen, these people down there don't have anything. So at the end, anything would be better than what they've got now. And it's still functional, but the way the system in Canada is, there's a certification that has to be placed on each one of these pieces of equipment, and that expense is quite high. And that's all I've got to say at this point in time. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Clayton?
I also will be speaking in opposition to the motion. I think that I'm not prepared to send this piece of equipment to an organization or a small community based on the fact that they feel they have the needs. The needs, although they may be determined in their mind, if the equipment is not utilized properly, it sits in a yard for a long period of time and it becomes ill-repairable. A piece of equipment could go to waste that could have been put to good use in an organization, in a country, in a city that we know already knows how to work with older equipment. I think that there's an opportunity here for us to continue to support an organization that has done excellent things in our region. And I think that if there are these organizations out there that require these equipment, I think that it's fair to think that the communication could have been made beforehand. I think that it's not fair to say that after the fact, that somewhere across the province they could have used this piece of equipment. And I think that if we were to give this to an organization somewhere in Alberta, Western Canada, it probably won't be put to as good use as it would be if we were to offer it to the Rotary clubs.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. I'll take a moment to express my opinion. I'm also a Rotarian. I will be supporting the motion for the reason that I think this would be in alignment with Rotary's mission as well. The whole intent of supporting Mazatlan by the donation of these vehicles was to help out a community that could use some help, that wouldn't be able to handle the capital investment to purchase something like this, and certainly recognize that there would be costs associated with this, and the costs associated with maintenance in Canada would probably be more than in another country, but those costs are still significantly less than purchasing a piece of equipment like this up front. And so, and I also just want to speak to the process that was outlined. It was at the committee level. It is a consultation with the Provincial Fire Commissioner's Office to see if they do know of any communities that could use this. And I think we should be really clear that the motion says if there aren't, no, or if the the Commissioner's Office says there's nobody that can handle owning this and make good use of it, then we still have that latitude. If there isn't an appropriate fit, administration can make that recommendation to us, and they are pre-approved to work with Rotary clubs to see it go to somewhere where we know that it could be used. So I think that this motion really meets the intent of the spirit of giving, of something that City of Grand Prairie can't use anymore, and still leaves enough latitude to say, yes, we've looked at home, if there was or wasn't a good fit, and choose a course of action. And if there isn't a good fit here at home in Western Canada, then we have given the direction to administration to work with Rotary clubs to continue that operation with Mazatlan. So that's my bit for the discussion debate. Councillor Clayton.
Would it be fair to amend the motion to have a time frame or something put in? I have fear that, you know, as these organizations that come forward and feel that they truly need this equipment, A, don't have the people trained to use it, B, don't have the money, and it's great to think that you need it, but as older equipment sits there longer and longer and doesn't get put to use, it becomes more expensive and not as usable. Is it possible to have some some kind of time frame here where it's, if you don't get back to us by a certain period of time, then it's going to Rotary?
Any council member can, of course, make a motion to amend. I think it just would appreciate the sentiment. We just want to make sure that we put something that's workable, I guess, in terms of a motion. So you just kind of would have to think about exactly what you'd want to say. So I don't know, Councillor Clayton, if you have a suggestion of how to do that. It could be, the motion doesn't speak, the committee report did speak to consulting with the Fire Commissioner's Office. The motion doesn't sort of address that. We understand that that was the process that was recommended. There could be if you're looking to amend to seek feedback from the Fire Commissioner's Office on a recommendation by a certain period, and then failing that to donate with Rotary, that might be something that would work. So I don't know if anybody would like to make a motion like that or have some wording that they'd like to attempt. But if there isn't an amendment, then I will be looking to call for the vote. So I have anybody that would like to make an amendment, or is there any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. And that motion, geez, that actually looks like it should be easier to read, but I'm not sure that it is. That motion carries on a 5-4. So that handles that piece of business. 9.4.2, the 2014 crushing program. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move a council award the RFP T-11-552-14 to Double D Bobcat Services and Contracting Limited for the 2014 crushing program based on per unit rate of $8.78 per ton to an upset amount of $399,999.24, excluding GST, as the most qualified proponent meeting city specs.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor McLean, you have one more piece of business.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd also like to move council award RFP 06-552-14 to ISL Engineering and Land Services Limited for the amount of $344,524, excluding GST, as the most qualified proponent meeting city specs.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm just wondering if administration could maybe just give a little highlight of what this work is.
Is there anybody from administration that would care to give us an update? Our standing in community safety director.
Sure, I'll give that an attempt. So, City Council approved capital funding for 92 Street upgrade design, as well as the 101 Avenue extension design and construction in this previous budget adjustments. As such, the work was indicated in the RFP, and so this is really the design and engineering piece.
Just to clarify, then the 92nd Street upgrading, is that the design for the twinning? Is that referring to?
That's correct. That's preliminary work for that.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Rice?
Just going to mention it's to 4-lane, the north end of it.
Yeah, and the other portion is almost immediately south of City Hall. There are the extensions. This is the design of that future signalized intersection and extension of the roadway through just north of the area that's the community garden. So not through the community garden, before anybody gets concerned. It's not going through the community garden, just north of the community garden. But I had to do the same thing to try and reference these in my head where they were. But again, just for design of those two projects. Any other discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor McLean, anything else you want to highlight from that meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Given. I just wanted to bring the one up with the crushing program. I'm glad it's gone through. It was a good contractor and be crushing a lot more per tonnage for the price the unit they're charging. But there was a question brought up in committee about, can the city get some funding back? Because when you buy a cubic meter of concrete, you're paying environmental tax, and yet we're crushing it and trying to utilize it and not just throw it in landfill. So that's supposed to come back to committee and have a look at, because everybody buys concrete is paying environmental tax, and we just want to know where that money is going. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. So we'll move on to the Corporate Services Committee meeting from April 1st as well. Councillor Logan. There we go.
Yeah, got it. Got all kinds of lights going on here now. I'd like to move that council receive the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting of April 1st, 2014.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Does it look like we got everything in the right place? We must have. Nobody ringing in. again, so I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan?
Sure, we've got several items that need consideration for 3 readings. First one is bylaw C1306 being a special tax levied against land in Pinnacle Ridge. So I'd ask that council give first reading to bylaw C1306.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. So a motion for first reading, we'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan?
I would ask that council give second reading to bylaw C1306.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Any discussion or debate on second reading? Councillor Rice?
This is the bylaw that the residents, the Neighborhood Association of Pinnacle Ridge, came to us and said, we want that entrance feature and we're prepared as a community to pay for it. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's exactly right.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion or debate? Seeing nobody else ringing in, then I'll call for a vote on second reading. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan?
Yes, I'd like to have council consider third reading of bylaw, that we have third reading of bylaw C1306.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. So a motion to have third and final reading here tonight. As with before, this motion must carry unanimously. For third reading to proceed tonight. Any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries, so we can have third reading, Councillor Logan?
Yes, I would move then that council give third reading to bylaw C1305.
Thanks very much. Any discussion or debate on third reading? Seeing nobody in the queue, then I will call for the vote. Thank you. Good, everybody. Thank you very much. That motion carries. So 9.5.2, Councillor Logan.
And I think I misspoke. I gave the wrong bylaw number in the third reading. I should have said bylaw C1306.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. I think
nobody noticed, so it can't be an enormous problem.
I think we're all voting. I think we're all voting on the business at hand.
So I would then move on to bylaw C1305 and ask council to give first reading to the property tax bylaw.
Okay, a motion for first reading. If there's no discussion or debate, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan?
I'd move council give second reading to bylaw C1305.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Any discussion or debate on second reading? Seeing nobody ringing in, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan?
I'd like to ask council to vote for having third reading of bylaw C1305.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Logan. So this is a motion again to have third reading, of course, to have all 3 readings of bylaw at one council meeting. This motion must pass unanimously. Otherwise, the third reading would come back to a future council meeting. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries, so we can have third reading, Councillor Logan.
Thank you. I will then move third reading of bylaw C1305 being the 2014 property tax bylaw.
Thanks, Councillor Logan. Any discussion or debate on third and final reading? Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. As I've been going to be supporting this motion. I just want to speak, give the reasons why. I think that it's a bit of a significant change, equalizing the low-density residential rate with the other residential. I think that it'll help encourage more apartment complexes to be built in Grand Prairie, and I think that this is a positive move, and I think it'll really set a precedent going into the future. So I urge council to support it on the third reading here.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I too will be supporting this bylaw. Just to add a little bit of context, administration had given us several options at the committee level of what we could go between. And I know for myself, it was a lot of double reading and double taking over the weekend, trying to figure out what best worked in the numbers. And based on my own personal, wish to see the city grow up and not out anymore, I thought that this might be the most beneficial move for the city to take in order to encourage future high-density residential housing development. So, yeah, I will be supporting this as well.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I will be supporting it too, but I did dwell on it. You know, hopefully it will go and get rid of a lot of these company-looking houses and units that's going on in different areas around the city that are not looking very good. I'd like to see some more sunrise towers and with balconies and high rises, and not just 3 stories and under where there's no elevators, so tenants can have to move everything up the stairs. Actually have elevators in the building. Just a question to, I guess, to Ken Anderson. By passing this motion, what kind of a tax break do developers or people building these buildings will get starting immediately from the taxes of these buildings?
Probably
assessment.
The best question for Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson? Or Mr. Anderson's the best person to answer that question. We could probably come up with better questions even for Mr. Anderson. Ken?
Mayor Given, for the average apartment dwelling that went up by the average assessment increase of 12%, what this will be a 17.9% property tax reduction for 2014. If their assessments went up more than the average of 12%, it will be less. Went down, if the assessment went less than 12%, it would be more. I think I said it right.
Councilor McLean.
So with this, thank you, Mayor Given. Thank you, Ken. It's a high number. And if we don't see within a couple of years some high rises happening, then we know it hasn't developed with developers. So hopefully they come on the plate. They're going to be saving almost 20%. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor McLean. Councilor Clayton.
I also will be speaking in favor of this motion. I think it sends a strong signal to the development community that we are ready to increase our opportunities in multifamily development. So I urge council to support this.
Thanks, Councilor Clayton. Any further discussion or debate? Councilor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll make a couple quick comments. I think it certainly supports one of our priorities was infill and increasing density within the city at our strategic plan. We haven't seen it yet, but when it comes, that will be a critical component. The other thing is I don't have any illusions that this was going to. The report indicated it might help with rents. I don't have illusions that it's going to change rent. Rent will be depend upon supply and demand as it usually does. But I do think long-term less tax, I think, should be an incentive. And I'm with Councillor McLean. I hope to see that our developers take up the challenge. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. And I also will be supporting the motion as I have the previous. One thing that I would say is just I think that this is about time. It really finally recognizes that places where people live should be taxed at the same rate. I think in the past there was some perception, probably justified, but that you know, apartment buildings as commercial properties should be taxed at a higher rate. But ultimately, this just brings into line all of the different places where people live in Grand Prairie will now be taxed at the same rate, which I think is a really appropriate move. Anybody else for discussion and debate? We've all had just about a go around, so I'll call for the vote on third and final reading. Thank you. That motion carries. Okay, Councillor Logan, you still got a few things left to go there.
Yeah, not too bad. We're doing really well. I've just had a quick question on this last item, and it's for my own edification. I understood that this discussion and debate would happen on second reading of the bylaw, not third reading of the bylaw. Is that old-fashioned now? Has that been changed, or is that in fact the process that we're required to follow?
No, I certainly call for discussion and debate on every reading except for first. And I learned my lesson on that last term, Councillor Logan. We were debating RV parking bylaw, I think, and there was one where somebody called me on the fact that I didn't allow discussion and debate on third reading, and it was noted that by the book it should be allowed. So I'll certainly make every opportunity to have everybody give every piece of feedback that they wish.
It's a different book than it used to be then. I like the idea, though. Then I'd move on to item 9.5.3, dividend declaration from Aquaterra. I'd move that council consent to the board of Aquaterra declaring dividends with respect to the corporation's Class D preferred shares, Class H preferred shares, and to provide for payment of such dividends on or prior to March 1st, 2014, notwithstanding the stipulations in Articles 8 and 10 of the USA. And I would urge anyone that has any questions about this to ask Ken that.
You're saying we may have found the perfect question for Ken. Open for discussion and debate. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none. Ken, you don't even answer question. Now he's begging to be asked. No, Councillor Rice, you may get your wish. Mr. Anderson.
Certainly, this is reflective of the main reason we formed Aquaterra in the first place, is it not? Is that it allows us to draw a dividend from that utility. And this dividend goes in order to, it reflects us keeping our tax rate lower. Is that correct?
It was one of the factors for causing the formation of Aquaterra. Wasn't the sole purpose of it, though.
I guess the other portion of that, Councillor Ryson referenced, if we didn't have this revenue, what would the impact on taxes?
Well, the impact on taxes would be just shy of 2% tax increase. Because it's more than that. We have $1.6 million, which is the mandatory dividend. They've given us a discretionary dividend of another $1 million for 2.6, so it's actually just shy of 3%.
Thanks very much, Mr. Anderson. Any further discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. Motion carries. Councillor Logan.
Sure, I think we're on item 9.5.4.
I believe so.
Move that council approve the mayor's appointment of a member of council to be a representative on the Ainsworth Public Advisory Committee.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. And Councillor Logan, that representative would be Councillor Radburn. So we'll include that in the motion.
Put that name in the motion, then. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Yeah, we'll keep this keep the folks of the discussion debate to the motion and not Councillor Radburn. Anything further? I don't see anybody ringing in. I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan.
Thank you. I think my final item of business is council consider accruing the unexpended 2013 council expense account funds to the 2014 budget year.
Yes, thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Discussion and debate. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm in favor of this. I'm glad to speak to it. My hope is to take the funds and hopefully carry them to this year, to have like a regional travel fund expense account, so we can be present at more regional activities such as parades and certain events that our partners in other communities. Example that are major events is we have Grand Alliance with the town of Grand Cache, and one of their big events is the death race, and to be able to have some councillors to attend. We also want to strengthen our liaisons regarding our positions such as MGA review, annexation, police funding, fair share, specialized municipalities. We're in big debate here in the next year or two, and I believe this is a very crucial road is to move forward. And in the end, this isn't extra monies. It's just utilizing what we already budgeted for to our full potential. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Any further discussion or debate? Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, I won't be supporting this motion. I think Councillor McLean's intentions are good. I think it speaks to being strategic in our advocacy efforts. But I think the practice of accruing funds in any specific expense account is ill-advised, particularly when we have monies remaining in our present budget. That budget line in terms of our disbursements, the information we're given to the committee, that there is significant dollars left. And so I would think that given a normal year, those monies will be available again this year because we didn't decrease that budget. And I think we have the wherewithal with the mayor to help us in terms of using those dollars the best we can, whether it be as a group or whether it be certain individual councillors who are taking a lead in particular advocacy. Maybe their budget needs to be strengthened from others of our budgets. So I guess I think that the conversation about being strategic is a good one. I just think that this speaks to the solution. I don't think we need this solution. I think we have the solution within the budget already. Thank you.
It's Councillor Radbourne. Councillor Clayton.
Sorry, I think Councillor Radbourne summed up my feelings. I won't support this motion. I think that, as Councillor Radbourne said, if there was opportunities for councillors to advocate and attend functions and throughout the region, throughout the province, we could discuss that on an as-needed basis. If all the budgets have been spent every year, then maybe this should come to the table. But at this point, to have excess money spent just because it's budgeted, I think is irresponsible.
Councillor Rice.
I'm speaking in support of the motion. I believe that passing this motion, and particularly if it is to form a fund called regional collaboration, I think would send a clear message to our neighbors at a time when we're very, when it's integral that we get their cooperation. You get your cooperation by strengthening our liaisons, and it's not going to cost us any more. There's no budget implications to this. I think it just opens the doors.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I will be speaking against this motion. I agree with the sentiment completely, and I like Councillor Rice's idea of having a regional collaboration fund. I think that's something we can maybe look at budget time. I think it might be sending the wrong message if we have, well, whatever our leftovers are, that's what it's going to be, right? And just, so there might not be any money left, and so, well, then we're not really committed to regional collaboration. So I would rather see it as a specific budgeted line every year. So I agree with the sentiment. The process proposed, I'm not in agreement with.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Don't know if I'm speaking for or against this motion. I will decide when it comes to yes or no. I have to say I love the idea. I think it's good, especially using it strategically, as has already been mentioned. The method, I don't know if I'm necessarily sold on it. I think it may create more work for our administration. It may mess up our dollars. I guess if I were speaking against it, I would say, we have a pool of money that we're gifted that some councillors use more than others, and we'll have leftovers. Now, that pool could be smaller, but with this strategic direction, that pool could be bigger, especially if we want to pick and choose where we're going to go and what direction and what events we want to go to educate ourselves. So I definitely love the idea. I still don't know, Kev. I'm sorry, buddy, but one way or another, I'm going to push yes or no here when it comes down to it. And you're going to know then, but yeah.
Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, Mayor Given, I'll be speaking in favor of this. I think that as some of the comments were said before, we are going into, it won't affect our actual budget at all. And I feel that this is a positive way, not necessarily a negative way. And if we can increase our presence in some of the areas where we haven't been able to go to speak on what we need to speak on, then this is a good opportunity to do so.
Councillor Clayton.
I would just like to say that I disagree. It does affect our budget because if there's money left over, it goes back into the funds for us to spend it in other places. So I think that if there's opportunities for us to attend things, we can find the needed resources from other councillors that don't always spend it. So I think that, yeah, that's all I have to say. Sorry.
Thanks, Councillor. Excuse me. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor McLean. I'll just look around. Is there anybody else that wanted to have a item of discussion debate?
I'll speak to close debate.
Sure, actually, closer to the motion. Thanks very much. So, Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor Given. And one of the main reasons bringing it about is sometimes you look at RCMP where we get a check back, they don't have enough feet on the ground because they didn't fulfill the positions. And sometimes you have extra funds left they weren't utilized that maybe they should have been utilized, not about saving money. And so I really hope it's passed tonight.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Logan, to close.
Live there, yes. The mover of the motion, so I guess I'm bound to vote according to that. But I really urge council to maintain a proper system of financial controls. If we've set up a budget with certain allocations to handle certain duties within the year, then that's what we expect to do. And funds that haven't been expended can therefore or can then come back to the council in the next year, where the use of those funds can be debated at that point. But to do at the end of a year, suddenly put aside a portion of our budgeted money and say, it's in excess, we'll save it for next year, that's bad planning, bad financial planning, and I would argue that that's got some ethical questions involved with it as well.
Motion passed, and that will carry. So we'll move on. We had, oh, sorry, Councillor Logan, did you have any other items that you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes?
No, thank you.
Okay, so so we'll move on to, we had no correspondence. We did have a couple of delegations. I think the first item of business, the draw of the number, was taken care of. And we'll move on the delegation around the cheerleaders event. Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I believe you directed for delegation business. I would hope to, I haven't done this before for delegation business, to bring it on for handicap for the signs to be above 2-3 feet. And I'd like to bring that on the agenda for community safety up, because I think it's been talked about last council and it's been brought back again, and we had like 6 feet of snow this winter. I think it's very important that it comes on the agenda quickly and see where administration go with it.
Thanks, Councilor Lane. And I have to apologize to council and the public. I actually misvoted in the last vote. I have to apologize. I was paying more attention to running the vote for council members than my vote, and I did a double tap and hit my yes when I had intended to vote no. So I apologize, and I would like to request a revote. So certainly we've done that in the past. I know with council member motions, and so it,
in the past it's almost been automatic if a member asks for a revote.
Yeah. So I would like to ask council to revote. I apologize. I
ripped my heart
out. My apologies. So I'm going to ask, with council's indulgence, I'll ask for a revote.
We have to vote on the revote.
So I will, if with council's indulgence, I'll call for a revote on that motion. Yeah, everybody has the opportunity to revote as they would choose. Okay. Again, my apologies. Councillor Thies.
Not that I'm speaking out against the revote, but according to the recommendation, it doesn't actually direct an action. It actually directs a consideration. Now, this could be brought up to maybe a future strategic planning direction where council gets together. There is no actual action attached to the motion. It is just a consideration under council. So I'm not sure that a revote may be necessary based on the wording.
Well, I think a revote needs to be, because I was in opposition and intended to vote no, and I voted yes. Okay. So I will call for the revote, and I'll start that vote now. Can I change my vote? Thank you. All 9 votes are cast. motion does not carry. My apologies, council, for that. My apologies, council, for that. I have seen it happen from time to time, and as I said, with pushing the buttons to run the council vote, I hit the yes button when I should have taken an extra second pause and hit the no button. My apologies. Councillor McLean, we were discussing delegation business, and you had a referral that you wanted to make to committee.
Yes.
And I apologize that we interrupted that. Would you like to speak to that again? Your microphone there.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd like to bring it forward to the next Community Safety Committee meeting, if not the one right after proceeding, that this be brought forward, or I'll bring it forward to, we have signs actually 2-3 feet in the air that you know you're parking in a handicapped or an area that for disabled. So,
sure. So maybe, Councilor McLean, that'd be a referral of the vertical handicap space markers
to community safety.
To the Community Safety Committee? Okay. So any council member can make a referral at any time. I don't think that we need to vote on that. Can we have maybe a motion to receive the presentation for information from the CPA? Motion to receive that delegation presentation. Thanks, Councillor Clayton.
I shall move that the motion be received and come to delegation. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So a motion to receive the Canadian Paraplegic Association presentation for information. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. That was all of our delegation business. We had no notices of motion, and that'd take us to council member reports, and we'll start with AUMA. Councillor Rice.
I attended the Mid-Sized City Mayor's meeting to do a presentation on getting some coordinated input to the revisions to the Municipal Government Act. The submissions are due the end of May, and so we need to get that that information firmed up. Minister Hughes was there, who was Minister Hughes at that point and is no longer. Did an interview with the Calgary Herald newspaper today, stressing that it is important that the government keep moving on, that it not be on stall waiting for a new leader, because there are so many issues that are vitally important to municipalities, and they have an acting premier who is very capable, and they need to get on with forming the Premier's Council on to review and set the principles of the Municipal Government Act review. So did an interview with Prime Time regarding the 40 police officers that they have added in this budget, expressing my concern that they have not touched the funding formula, and as well the 40 officers will be going primarily to the rural areas, and it is not the interviewer asked, well, how many more police officers do you think you need? It's not numbers. It's the formula that is faulty. We need a formula that is fair and equitable, since community, crime prevention and safety, if you asked any Albertan, I guarantee you that those topics would be between their first and third most important things. So those issues have to be looked at.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. The next was Peace Airshed Zone. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I just want to speak to PAZA, Peace Airshed.
Councillor McLean, I don't think you.
So I'll just speak to PAZA. We had a not staff change, but from 3 to 2, where program manager is Patrick
Anderson and PAZA's business manager is Elizabeth Bell, and they went to have a contract out position for checking out the different sites. You might have read in the article recently in the Herald from Elizabeth. PAZA focused on education youth, and it spoke to a few issues I just want to bring up. I think were pretty exciting. Grand Prairie poses a low to moderate health risk in the air at 97% of the time. PASA job provides scientifically dependable data about quality of air. Data is big on this council. Air quality is urban and a rural issue. Some of you might remember about a year and a half ago, the road was closed to go to the town of Grand Cache, our Alliance member, and readings were over the roof in Valley View. So not much was said in the papers, but it's time to really watch. Also, PASA is sustainable financially and looking at growing with its members. It's a partnership of public community municipalities and public members, and I'm just learning, so I was glad to report this. And we had a full day in Sexsmith. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor McLean. And then our final update was from the Philip J. Curry Dinosaur Museum. Councilor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I've got lots to talk about, but I'll just bring up one tonight. The Edmonton International Airport has expressed interest in working with the University of Alberta and the Philip J. Curry Dinosaur to put on an exhibit showcase in the terminal. And the quality of the project will be museum quality. Reach and Peace is a company that the Philip J. Curry Museum used in their displays, and that'll be a top-notch, high-quality exhibit. And, I'll have more to come in the future.
Thanks very much, Councilor O'Toole. I don't believe there are anybody else that said that they had reports from our agencies, boards, or commissions that were appointed to. So, seeing that, then we'll start with Councilor Radburn for Councilmember Roundtable. Councilor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just quickly, March 26th, we attended a number of council attended our city retail market analysis update. It was a good report, very informative, and I believe it's on our city website now if residents want to take a look. On March 27th, I attended the Budget 214 presentation by Minister Horner, and in the evening, along with other council members, we attended the intermunicipal meeting with county councillors, Wembley, Sexsmith, Hythe, and Beaver Lodge. Representatives. March 31st, ATCO Community Symposium update. Just a reminder that it is May 22nd. It's for community capacity development, particularly in the non-profit sector. So check that out. April 12th, Downtown Association Board meeting in the morning, and then later that morning attended the City Innovation Recognition presentation and awards. Just wanted to commend staff who were recognized for their efforts and for the committee that developed the criteria and made the selections and hosted a great event. And finally, on April 4th, Councillor McLean and I attended the Municipal Affairs sponsored MGA review consultation at Musco CP Park. Very, very well attended. There was, I'd say 40 to 50. They had to add a table outside the room, actually, in Musco CP Park. So there was a great turnout, and it was a good opportunity to share some of our perspectives relative to what the MGA might be changed to help everyone. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I as well attended the intermunicipal government meeting, and I thought it was mainly information sharing and kind of learning what's going on in the region. It was really good to have some of those informal conversations and get to know some of our fellow elected officials in the area. It was great. Other than that, last week I took a nice little vacation down to our sister city in Mazatlan and got to enjoy my time down there. So that's it.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Clayton.
I was vacationing, not with Councillor Tarrant, but I was away since the last council meeting, so I'm glad to be back and looking forward to a busy spring. Thank you.
Councillor Clayton. Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, Mayor Given, I attended 17 meetings since the last council meeting here. Those meetings consisted of council activities. On the 26th, I had the opportunity to speak at the first fundraiser regarding the suicide prevention of youth. And this was hosted at the Grand Prairie Curling Club. The event was called Hurry Hard. There was a number of curlers from the region, some of the youth in the programs here in town, and also some international curlers. And they played a part in this big fundraiser. There's also a lot of local businesses and families that made this happen. And it was a very somber evening, but there was great expectations in the future to maybe put some prevention in the future. I also attended the 100th Parks naming the first park, and that was the John Macaulay Park out in the Mission Heights. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Rice.
Okay. I attended the Government of Alberta post budgetary discussion with the Honorable Doug Horner, put on by the Chamber of Commerce. Very good crowd there and some good questions. I attended with Councillor Thiessen the emergency training for elected officials at the county's community services building, and it was very interesting. I have received the emergency training at Arnprior, so this was, I think, a really good introduction, particularly for new members of council. I attended the innovation recognition of city staff, and congratulations to all of those who received the awards, and a big, nod of appreciation for their ingenuity and their perseverance. I attended the intermunicipal meeting as well, and I think it's, if anyone was in that room, you would see that, the relations aren't as strained as what some people might believe. I think that overall, obviously, we have some areas of disagreement, as well we should, but for the most part, I think the entire group of elected officials from the region has the interest of the region as their strongest motivator.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I too attended many council meetings over the past 2 weeks, as well as some of the other events that have already been talked about. One thing that I did do that was a little different than council, just due to scheduling conflict, is the retail market analysis. I sat amidst the public and got to hear their questions and feedback. So whereas council had the opportunity to sit in council chambers, I got to sit beside a former councillor in Dan Wong and see what the rest of the community had to say about the retail market analysis, and their reviews were all pretty good. Outside of that, I also got to sit in with the reviewing of the budget with Minister Doug Horner, the intermunicipal meeting at Evergreen Park. It was 2 days in a row that I got to sit beside Reeve Leanne Beaupre. We were joking and telling many stories. So as Councillor Rice was alluding to before, our relationships are not that strained. At least I think she likes my sense of humor, and I did not have a bad time. Sometimes, yeah. And I also attended the community symposium on March 31st with other members of council, innovation recognition. I would like to at least acknowledge the winner. It has been acknowledged on our website, but Ken Santa Rosa for overall innovation winner. I was quite fortunate. I picked a table where there's one person sitting at, and it filled up, and there ended up being 3 innovation winners at that table. So I was cheering on lots of those people there. And just a little history note for the naming of the John Macaulay Park, which I attended with other members of council and the public. Helen Rice read the proclamation, but it was quite interesting to find out that John Macaulay was the original owner of the land property that later became Mission Heights, which is where the park was dedicated. So that was a nice little piece of history that I was able to be a part of. And that, I guess, is all that I did in the last 2 weeks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Logan.
if that thing's going to blow up or what. One item that I wanted to mention, and that's that felt very privileged to bring greetings on behalf of Mayor Given and the members of City Council to the Hindu Cultural Center during this last week. They not only greetings to them and on the wonderful location that they have, but greetings on the guest preacher that people may have picked up from the media was giving courses in the Hindu religion during the last week. And that person was Shushri Dekwakari Devi. And I'm sure I got about 18 errors in pronunciation there. But I was tremendously impressed with their cultural center, another word for a place of worship, and the reception that I had there.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. As well, attended a lot of events, but I'll just speak to these two that I've written down. March 25th, we had a community of the whole meeting here at City Hall. March 27th, I attended at Center 2000, where Finance Minister Doug Horner was speaking on behalf of the 2014 budget. And one question I asked him was, businesses are doing well, and you're doing well in the budget, supposedly. There's contradiction on there. Why is there towns going bankrupt around Alberta and not being forced not to dissolve, but going amalgamation within the counties? So anyways, I asked that question, had no problem to do that. On March 27, I also attended the LCM 50-year celebration of Chamber of Commerce for they've been in business quite a few years, and I was glad to be able to get I bought a few furnaces from them over the years and finally get a free beer. So anyways, other than that, congrats on them. March 27, intermunicipal meeting was held at Evergreen Park. March 31st, I also attended with other councillors to Community Symposium of ACO Electric. Basically, they're trying to set it up for, I believe it's in May, for nonprofits, to help nonprofits out financially and where to go to help them out. April 2nd, as I responded, I was in Sexsmith for PAZA all day, but the one I want to speak to is the Gibson plant. We always hear about different things happening where they're filling oil in the tankers, and communities up in the Peace Country where farmers have left their farm because it's hurt their health of their family, and you're seeing it in the paper now. There was questions in Sexsmith, but actually Gibson's as a company has been very well open and receptive to working with the mayor, working with the town. They basically make, I guess, a mud for drilling drilling into different lines, whatever they ask for in different areas. Every soil is different, and these load oil there. So, but they're really trying to work within the community. But there's been some questions, but not as much as up in Peace River. And so sometimes development happens, and the biggest tool municipalities have is on development. On April 3rd, I attended the MGA review for a public open house at Mississippi Park in the evening. As well, on April 4th, I attended with Councillor Redburn at the MGA review for elected officials. Very well attended. They had people out in the foyer. These are the things that are strategically going to be very important in the future. And the one I wish I would have went to is the one on assessment and businesses that went to, and how they get discounts on certain things for paying certain prices, and where that's at, because I believe that's a big open envelope. That's everything. Thank you, Mayor Given.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. In addition to a number of the items that have already been mentioned, I attended the Mid-Size City Mayor's Caucus meeting in St. Albert at the end of last week, Thursday and Friday. Appreciated the presentation by AUMA President Helen Rice on AUMA's work. This continues to be, I think, one of the most significant groups that we're a part of. Certainly enjoy the province-wide and diversity of communities at AUMA. But I think in terms of a working group, this Mid-Size City Mayor's Caucus is very, very flexible. And we share a lot of common concerns. The group has recently been expanded to include any towns over 15,000 in population, because there are actually some cities that are smaller than 15,000. We have towns like Okotoks that are up over 20,000, while some towns are just over 10,000. And so we thought it was worthwhile to include them. So it's a group of about 21 or 22 communities now. As one of the, just a small piece of activity that we did is we all signed a a signature card, so that when there's an issue of common concern that we all share in, when we choose to send a letter, we can do that with signatures of up to 22 different communities on a single letter, which we found in the past has been actually relatively effective rather than each community sending their own letter. I think sometimes it gets a little bit more government notice. And I can say that it has because since last term, the mid-sized cities have had a associate minister attached to it, and that for the last while has been Minister Wiedek, a Southern Alberta MLA, who was tasked specifically with ensuring that the views of mid-sized cities were reflected at the caucus table, which was great. Even better was that he was there for the 2 days of our discussions and joined by Minister Hughes. And even better than that is he's the new Minister of Municipal Affairs. So it's great to see that that MLA who was tasked with making sure that mid-sized cities' views are reflected at the caucus table is now the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So I think that speaks to the weight that group carries. Certainly proud to be a part of it and proud to contribute and look for opportunities to work together. That's all I have to report. And so if there's nothing else, then I'll call our council meeting adjourned.